I'm waiting for Jan to come to start our conversation about creativity. Hi.
We're upside down.
Oh, you're here. So I'm like
Yes.
this too. Okay.
All right. I will go a little bit to the
Good.
back. So here we are. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I'm very excited.
Happy to have you here.
No, I'm very happy to be there. Or I'm here, but
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So, Jan, the topic we are going to talk is creativity, but I want you to tell a bit about yourself, to be familiar with you a little bit.
Right.
The friends are listening to our chat, and I hope it will grow more and more. So we are waiting for friends to come, but before they come, you talk about yourself a
Yeah.
little bit.
So first of all, I think I was setting my set a little bit for widescreen.
Wow.
Now we are more small.
Good.
So this is better, I think.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yes.
Good.
Well, these are some of the films, short films and documentaries, youth documentaries that I either produced, co-produced, created, co-created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, to introduce myself, I'm working as an international film and television maker, also cross-media project.
Yeah.
And I started very young, wanting to be a filmmaker. At 17, I founded my first production company.
Wow.
It was called Atlantis Film Productions.
Wow, great.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And so I started to make short films. Fiction
Mm-hmm.
short films was really my passion, and it still is. And my first job in media was working for a Dutch institution that made and distributed films for educational services. Actually,
Very
when I
nice.
started, it was still on film, you know, big film cans traveling around the country. And that could be shown in schools or another educational organizations. And so what I did there was either produce new content or adapt content from abroad. I remember my first big project was to translate and to make an educational package out of a BBC film about computers. And you know,
Computers.
these computers, the computers going to
Wow.
change the world. So I was there at the beginning.
Okay.
And
Very nice.
and then, but at some point, after being more a freelance filmmaker or doing kind of different things, I thought it would be interesting to work for television and to have that pressure of not creating once a year or twice a year, but every day.
Mm-hmm.
I was really interested in
Uh-huh.
and somehow then I got a phone call from a private children's channel. And I had a daughter who was 2, started to watch TV, and I didn't like what was on TV. So I thought, okay, I can change her world of media. So I worked for a small private children's channel, first in the Netherlands, and then I was asked to join KRO, which was the major public broadcaster in the Netherlands, where I worked 16 years as a creative director, which was a very interesting period of time in which I created something like 125 films, programs, and series, besides dozens of co-productions that I did, not only in the Netherlands with great filmmakers, but also abroad. Always my mind was, we cannot just make media in our country. We have to open, you know, we really have to think of universal needs and connections and learning from each other. So I was always very focused on working together. And so after 16 years in public TV, there were some changes there, and wasn't sure if I could continue with my personal philosophy that I brought to public TV. So I decided to leave, and somehow I ended up by becoming the head of children and youth media at a Dutch NGO, and now also working a lot as a freelance filmmaker, director, scriptwriter, producer. I'm teaching around the world, and meanwhile I've been working already in 65 countries. So
yeah, I also have seen you in South Africa.
Yes, we were there.
You were there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
At the first Nelson Mandela Children's Film Festival. It's already 2 years or 3 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Nice, about, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, that was an amazing experience, really.
Yes, of course.
And that is also one of the great things about working international, as what I do now full time. I mean, I'm maybe without the quarantine now, but I'm maybe 10% to 20% of the year in the Netherlands, and always working in different countries. And it's so enriching. It's so great to be around, and sometimes people really are so proud about the culture, so you really learn to know, but also you learn to know stories that, for instance, never reach to you through the news or through other media. So that is also what I learned, is being responsible for children's media and for so long at the channel and at various channels, that it is such a great place where kids can meet kids.
I missed your voice. I missed your voice, and I missed your. Let me see if the people who are watching this have this problem or not. Excuse me. I opened the comments so they can tell me if they have the voice correctly or not, because I don't want to have a bad connection.
No,
I think the connection is poor. Sorry, I don't hear you.
I saw your image frozen for a while.
Yeah, yours too.
Okay.
And I didn't have your voice, but now it's okay.
Right.
Sorry, you can continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So I will catch up what I said lately. Is that the challenge and the great responsibility that we have working in children's media is that we should not make mainstream. We should make the best of the best. Because imagine you step you step into this world, and you're challenged, you see no horizons, you see beauty. That is, I think, our challenge. And so that's what
of course. And
yeah, that's what I've been doing in my life, and I will continue doing so.
Yeah, you're right. And when you travel to the different countries and you see children, people there, you are connected with different cultures. And of course, when you teach them, also you learn from them. And this is the connection between cultures and all the things.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Even though I'm not teaching children, sometimes I do a project with children, but basically I'm working with professionals, with directors, scriptwriters, channels, but yes, of course, I think it's an obligation also, if you have the privilege of traveling so much and learning so many different situations, that you have to share that. So that is what I'm doing.
Yeah, sure.
By lecturing, by teaching, by supporting productions around the world. Yeah.
You are doing a very big work. A very big job.
It's I mean, many friends of me always say that, do you need an assistant? Because they think also a little bit that it must be like a holiday. Well, I can tell you, it is not. And if you have to be in,
it's a tough job.
It is, and all the time zones that you go through, all the adaptations that you have to make to get from the airport to a hotel, and you know, to places. It's a huge organization also. But once you're in that flow, which is now completely interrupted by the Corona crisis, now I'm suddenly in my house that I haven't seen much long, so I'm suddenly discovering the house again. But
very nice.
yeah. Also, one thing that I learned by having all this international work is that actually I'm a minority. Suddenly, in the profession, the majority is women. Like in education, 90% in children's TV, at least in creative children's TV, is women. And
wow.
only 10% is men. So when I became the head of KRO Youth in the Netherlands, I was a minority. And there was even that somebody said to me, wow, that you take a job like that, like it was not a proper job. And
why?
Yeah, because maybe a man should go to a bank or to have a career in sales, I don't know. But I think the most difficult and the most challenging is to help a new generation to grow and to not make the mistakes that our generations are making. And media can absolutely contribute to that.
Yeah, right. And I think it's because of your philosophy that you have mentioned before.
Yes.
Because of that, you choose this job.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What I felt when I was asked to run my first private channel was that, okay, but what am I going to add to that world? So I was looking what they were doing and I thought, no, this is not what I want to do. I really want to do something else. I really want not to put my message there or to think that I know what is good for them. I want to put the children in the center. And to really put the center is not so easy. I mean, if you, I'm not saying you, but in general, if you want to, if you want to become the head of a children's channel because you are a mother, or because you're a teacher, or because you are representing a political party, it will be boring children's TV. If it's not the child in the center, but it's something that adults want from children, it's always, in general, boring children's television. And why should a child watch television or a movie that is boring? None of us want.
Yes, of course.
So, especially with our responsibility and our minds and our people that are very motivated, as you know yourself, why do we do this? Usually it's the most tough job because it is not really supported by funding.
No.
On a birthday party, it's not the most sexy talk to talk about children's film and television. And still we do it because we believe that it can really contribute. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's very important also to be well connected. So a meeting like this and the people who are watching now is so important that we connect each other because we also need each other's support.
Yes, of course. We are doing this conversation to do this, actually, to spread our community.
No, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's great to see you again now live.
Yeah, me too.
This year, so.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you too. Okay, Jan, the topic we have chosen is creativity. Yeah. So I want to know what is creativity in your definition?
Yes, some 20 years ago, when my Children in the Center philosophy started to grow, I met a Swedish creative lecturer. His name is Fredrik, I think you pronounce it Herin. And we were both lecturing at the Scandinavian Children's meeting. And we talked, and he said a few things that completely connected with what I felt, but couldn't put in those very strong and clear words. One thing he said, creativity, not everything already exists. So creativity is not that you have to invent something that doesn't exist. Creativity is to combine two things that already exist into something new.
Right.
And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I think maybe I would add, you can combine 10,000 things to create something new, but the basic principle of everything exists. So you will not find something that doesn't exist, but it's the combination of things that,
the combination
that makes something new and that lifts something, that brings something further. That part,
it's really nice.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always,
yeah.
I always bring that words of him because he said it so clear, and I can really promote his work. Maybe you can find speeches of him on YouTube.
Nice.
And so that's one thing he said. The other thing he's saying, and some others also say, and myself too, is that, for instance, if you are working in a channel, you're the head of a channel, or of a production house, or of an animation studio, and you want people to be creative, you have to be creative yourself. Because if you are not, if you are not
to combine this,
yeah. So, but the thing is, what is happening today in let's say children's channels? Who are running those channels? Not the creative people anymore. Managers, you know, marketing, and okay, it has a reason, but it's not the creative industry. It's not the top creativity that I think children deserve. So that is the other thing, is that I really believe, and that's also one of the reasons I left public TV at the moment that management and marketing much more took over. And because I think especially for children, the youngest generation, it has to be, I mean, basically their minds are much more creative than ours, because I'm talking now for my generation, we go through emotions, experiences, we get scars, so we are like a little bit careful. Also, Thomas Frederick Harren, he said, if you really want to find creativity, and I completely agree, and I completely experienced that myself, go to preschoolers. Before they go to school, they're the most creative, because there's no conditioning, unless maybe there's a lot of parental influence, but their minds are free. And so I started to do preschool TV that is not prescripted, but was just in a way following preschoolers in their way of solving the little things that we think are little but are big for them. So I started with a preschool documentary format. I started some other preschool formats in which the camera follows the child.
Nice.
And the funny thing is, or the cruel thing for us adults, is that what happens in the real world, what they are saying and doing, is always much stronger than we can ever imagine to write. Their reality is much more strong and dramatic and interesting than when we sit and write a script. So it's so important also when we are making a fiction or preparing a documentary to really observe them, to really talk with them, to really get to understand that we can always make more steps. We can, of
course, and to put ourselves in their place. I think it is important too.
And that's very difficult. That's very
sure.
I always use the example of my children. Even though it's always risky to use your own children as an example, but this is a clear case that any child would go through. Some friends asked me years ago to go with them to a concert of the Rolling Stones. I went there, and then a few months later, the DVD of that concert came out. So I bought it, I went home, and I said to my children, who were maybe 4 and 6 or 5 and 7, I said, look, you remember that Daddy went to this big concert in the stadium with the Rolling Stones? Well, here's the DVD. Let's watch it. You can also see it now. I put the DVD in, and I was like excited to, and they look at me and like, who are these old guys making this lousy music?
Yeah, sure. They didn't like this.
They don't know them. They don't know them. So they're completely purely reacting to it. They're spontaneous reaction. And of course, music you have to learn to know. Art you have to learn to know. There's many things that you have to learn to know. But at least it was also important to know that if we put something on screen, whether it's in a cinema, whether it's on a computer, whether it's on TV, that image, that first thing that they see and many kids see things for the first time in their life on the screen,
yeah,
they will have a different way of looking at it as us, who went through that already a million times. So creativity
sure.
is limited. That is something you really have to think of when you work for children. That creativity has a limitation because they are not adults. They didn't went through your creativity. They didn't went through your experience. So you really have to think of how does this image, this color, this edit, this association of images, how does that, how is this received by a 5-year-old when it's preschool TV, or by a 9-year-old when it's kids TV? And that's always different than we think. So, for instance, the Prisioness International, the most important children's television festival in Munich every other year, they are making so-called guessing games. What they do is they take a scene from a children's TV program, and they show it to children. And they record the children watching it. And then they stop it, and they show it to professionals and say, okay, what do you think the kids are saying now? How do they react on this scene? Guess it. And
they should guess.
And we think we know. And most of the time, everybody is wrong. So it's the opposite. It's not most of the time they're right. Most of the time they're wrong. They will not admit it. Nobody will admit it. But that is the challenge. That is the challenge, that we are not children. We think that we think we know them.
Differently.
Yeah. So it is 24/7, being with them, listening to them, working with them, looking what they do themselves, to get somewhere. You know,
a little bit.
Yeah, to get a little bit there. So that is the main. And of course, when you get older, and when you are, for instance, almost 2 meters like me, and you have to work with preschool kids, it's a very crazy experience.
It's somehow a challenge, huh?
Yeah.
To have a relationship with them.
Yeah. Because on one hand, I always know that when I work with preschoolers, I have to try to get on their eye level with the camera, but also myself. Because if I'm standing like
you should always sit.
And I'm talking.
You should always sit.
Yeah, sit or knees, but without making yourself ridiculous. You know.
Yeah, sure.
You're an adult. You have a position. I mean, so there's also something that is an area where it's easy to make mistakes. To be too friendly, to think I'm really a friend of them. No, you're not. You're an adult, and for the moment you can create something together, especially when you do it together, when you really integrate the child in what you're doing, whether it's a documentary or a fiction. But yes, there is a gap. There's a gap, and the gap gets bigger the older you get. So I know.
But we should create a good atmosphere to have a good. We should have a good atmosphere.
That's absolutely important. And there are, of course, and it's okay with me. There are different techniques of working with children. You know, you can have the more friendly approach, that you really relax and play games, and then you put the kid in front of the camera, or you just look at it as a contract. You have a child. The child knows what it has to do. It has a script. It has been rehearsed. Okay, now we're going to shoot it. There are different ways that people do it. Personally, I go for the first option, and I can really. With all this experience and watching so many things in my life, you can really see a difference. Maybe the general audience will not notice that as easy, but I think the more it's real, the more you can connect with it. Even though when it's fiction, when it's fictional. I mean, you make animation, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So in animation,
Yes.
in animation also, it can be completely like an abstract, beautiful world. But when you're going to tell a story with characters, it has to be something. I mean, the fantasy can be there, but it has to
Yeah, sure.
be the reality of those children, so they can really connect with it and they can really be there. So that is the challenges of our creativity, is to think of that effect that it has on the children, and to also understand that there is a limitation. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
there's also a limitation for many adults. For instance, an adult that never went to a museum of modern art in its life, and you drop it in the MoMA, that person says, where am I? What is this for crazy? It's that language you also have to learn. But same goes for media. So you cannot just throw anything to children. It has to be a process of growing, and you have to be very aware of where they are, and try to serve that.
Yeah, sure. And I know that you have been in different countries. You have actually you have worked with UNICEF organization, and you've been in different countries. Is it different? What you have said in different countries, the people are different there, the children are different, and you have different attitudes toward them, or not? All the people, all the children are the same around the world.
Yeah, we have a great expression for that in the Prisoners network. It's different but the same. So what it means is that my experience is that basically in their being, children are comparable worldwide. But then, of course, circumstances can make a difference. The demands on children, their position. I mean, of course, the wealth, the poverty, cultural influences, political influences. Sure. So it is really it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time to really analyze that, and to understand. But basically, it's interesting that also the Prisoners has done a lot of research on children's media, and one thing on many different topics. For instance, on gender equality, on different stories, emotions. But one thing was very interesting they did some years ago was humor. How do children understand and appreciate humor? And in fact, there they found the most differences.
Humor, you mean? Huh?
Yeah, there are, for instance, kids of the same age from different countries can really have a different way of reacting to something. Of course, kids of different ages also, a 9-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, they react differently on things. But that was what I remember is the most significant difference between kids around the world, was especially you could really see in the humor. And of course, it also has to do with what are they watching? What is their habit, their tradition? What is their capacity? But also humor in countries is different. I mean,
it is
the British tongue-in-cheek humor. We know the Danish very direct humor. Different styles of humor, and different ways of reacting to it also. I mean, in some countries, like in the Netherlands, you can laugh as loud as you want to something. In other countries, you first have to look at the eldest in the room. If the eldest in the room laughs, you're allowed to laugh.
Right.
These are such
it depends on the culture. It's completely cultural, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Or we have a lot of debates always in the Netherlands about when something really dramatic happens in society, could be a murder or a death or something. Can you make a joke about that? And in the Netherlands, it's very strong the idea that no matter what happens, if we cannot make jokes about it anymore, we cannot get out of the depression. In other countries, they say, no, it's not ethical. If something bad happens, please don't touch the subject. And we have to respect both sides. But it's mostly difficult to learn about that. I mean, you really have to be.
It's very hard to learn. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
but that's what you see also with children's, for instance, children's film that travel around the world. Some of them have something universal and they can pick up awards around the world. Others maybe pick the most awards in Asia, or pick the most awards in Europe, or pick the most awards in Latin America, because there is something that is more coherent, more connecting there than it does in other countries.
I see.
Yeah, and
right. It's very right.
My challenge always was working for public TV in the Netherlands, with the possibilities that it gives there in terms of what you can produce, the freedom, the creative freedom. I always said, okay, but let's not keep it for the Dutch only. Let's make something that is universal. So let's put our cultural elements there, but make it universal so it can travel and other kids can also relate to it and enjoy it. And maybe learn from it, or
yeah. The thing that you have mentioned, and it was new for me, actually. I always thought that children are more creative than adults. But you said that it is not like this, as if I understand correctly. You said the creativity relates to the experience that people have. Yes.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, that last part is more than the first part. I mean, I didn't say that kids are less creative. I even think that the preschoolers are the most creative, especially when we give them the space to do it. But
you said it has limit.
Yes, our creativity for children has limits because of their age, because of their context, because of their development. Not all the things that work for us, that we went through many times, immediately work for them. Which this is the most important thing I want to say, is which doesn't mean we have to give them what they already know. No, we have to seduce them, next steps to broaden their minds. But it's not like just throwing everything and then say they didn't watch, but it was great. It is really,
so we should push them. Yeah, we should push them.
No, we should seduce them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and how can you seduce? When they can reach it. When it's too far away, too abstract, not in their mind, how can we, they will be polite and watch it, but the real understanding isn't there. So that's what I mean, is different from, let's say, in general, adults who went through many things already, many times. Kids see things often for the first time in their life, are in the learning years of understanding media, of seeing different perspectives. Maybe they have other languages themselves inside them, but nobody asked them. That's, for instance, what we do with my #QuarantineLife. I'm really interested in how kids free would take a camera and tell a story. I'm really interested in that also. But coming back, so the limitations are have to do with that there are no adults, they are not in the same development stage as we are. But I mean, it is not much different from different social groups in society. I mean, for instance, in the Netherlands, take, for instance, we have in the center of the country, we have a very strong conservative community that, for instance, have a tradition of not watching TV. Their way of receiving... Why? Because they are convinced that television is not respecting, for instance, on Sunday, it's not respecting the Lord, or it is showing things, making things explicit in images that we should not see. So there are reasons, and
even the channels that are especially for kids.
Yes, even channels that are especially for kids, because there are still people that think that some subjects should not be dealt with. We should not talk about certain subjects in children's TV. Some parents believe that, and of course they have the right. It's, for me, it's sad, but they have the right. So, for instance, those groups also have a different context. So when they would watch anything that we give to them, most of it they would not understand because they have not the experience of going through it. That's what I mean. It's the same with books. If you don't start in an early stage with kids reading simple stories, more complex stories, more literature, from lecture to literature, how can they at a later age, why would they take the Nobel Peace Prize winning author?
Yeah, they cannot.
It's too big. Well, it's not different in film and television. So that's what I meant with the limit, is that yes, they are in a stage of development, and it's great if they can grow with our media. And that's, I mean, that's maybe the difference between, in general, the public TV as we know it in Europe, which is independent, is driven for, basically it should be driven by creativity, or commercial TV that is driven by profit. And both of them have a reason of existence. But I think I'm on the part that wants to develop, wants to find new things, and not just give them what they already know, but seduce them to new steps, to new environments, to new horizons, but not by throwing things that is too abstract, too far away, too much in our mind. And that is difficult. That's why I think children's filmmakers, children's TV makers have to be the top professionals. Learning.
Of course.
And I wish
always learning.
That when I was 17, I could have said, I want to become a professional children's film or TV maker. But those educations don't exist. In general, they don't exist. So the reason why we have this kind of meetings, we have workshops, we have lectures around the world, is because there is no school system for becoming a great...
Unfortunately.
So we need great talents that come through, that get a chance, but we also, we really have to think of, we have to find more professional educational systems also. Then we can really bring the best professionals forward. And now we're very much depending on talented people and very committed people, which is great. But it also should, since its importance, it's about a new generation that will go in, you know, will lead in the future the country, the world. So we really have to give them the best that we can, and that's why we also the best makers there.
Of course. Jan, I had read a sentence that you have said in your site. I think I don't remember which one was, but the sentence was very fascinating for me. I want to read it so correctly. You have said the quality of children's media in a country reflects the quality of a country. I think this is the answer to the parents who do not believe in TV and media.
Yeah, I mean, it is true that I mean, I'm coming in these countries. No, this is an example from years ago. I knew a filmmaker. She was in Nepal, and I wanted to have these very young monks that are learning their religion. I wanted to see that. I wanted to have that on film. So I asked the filmmaker who was there, "Can you go to a monastery and ask if you can make a documentary, preschool documentary about these very young monks?" So she went there, she knocked on the door, and there was a monk coming, and she said, "Hello, I'm from the Netherlands, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm here, I'm trying to make a film." He said, "Great. Yes, so I want to make a film about your really young child monks." And he said, "Young child monks, do we have them?" "Ah, yes, we have them. But it's much more interesting to film me."
Oh.
I mean, it is, I don't want to offend anyone, but it is a typical example that you can make in any country in the world where where basically still they think, well, children's TV is nice, it's good. If we have some money extra, we'll do it.
Yeah.
First thing we cut.
Children are not important.
Yes, and it's not real television. And maybe there is a lot of bad programming, of course. So maybe for part they are true, it's true, but it's not true for the part of the people like you, like many people that I meet around the world who are so committed, have great talents, and really want the kids to grow with great media. So if you look at structures in a country, for instance, is there a funding structure to fund productions for children? If you look at the position of children and children's rights, if you look at child labor, but also, you know, anything related to children, and you look at how the quality of the media in the country is, you can really say, well, the quality of that media represents what is happening in that country, is the quality of that country.
Yeah.
So if you, for instance, only have commercial programs, like basically in the USA, there's only commercial TV, and maybe it's great, could be, but it's not a complete package of programming for kids. They don't have access to the large variety. So it shows the country, the quality of that country. I mean, again, I don't want to offend anyone, but you can really see that the children's media, the way it's dealt with, says something about that country. And
of course,
the great thing is that sometimes I'm introduced to ministers of education, media. And I remember once I had the chance to speak to a minister of education. And I said that, you know, that the quality of media in the country reflects the quality of the country. And immediately that minister decided, we have to build better programs. And supported a workshop 1 year later where we sat with all the people and we created the program. So
wow, great. So it worked.
Once you find the right person and the image, they get that image, then something can happen. But basically, it's very hard. I mean, also in the Netherlands, where nowadays there's a very good infrastructure for children's television, there's money. But still, when there's a debate, when they have to cut budgets in public TV, they have to really fight to not that it's not the first thing that is kids TV. Also, they have to really fight that you don't cut, let's say, the special genres like documentaries, or like artistic animation, or like short dramas. Usually that are the things that they cut, and then you have to make soaps, or you have to buy 140 episodes of animation.
Commercial, I see.
To fill the schedule. Also, is part of the total package, of course, but it's not the driver of changing the media landscape and showing by the quality of that media, the quality of that country.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, I think Instagram has a limitation time for the live. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are going to end this session, but I will connect again now. I mean.
Yes.
Okay. I will end this session in a minute.
Yeah.
In a minute. Okay.
All right.
So I end this and I will come in a minute.
All right.
Wait for me.
I will.